Welcome to another community conversation. I'm your host, Ian Parkinson. With me today is Marco Jansen, the Airboss of the Medicine Hat Airshow, known as Fun, Family and Flight. Welcome, Marco.
Thank you for having me back.
So July the 22nd for the Fun, Flight and Family.
Family, Fun and Flight.
It's going to be a busy day for you.
It's going to be a busy weekend. We actually start set up the day before, and then there's the tear down the day after. So it's a lot of work.
So on the Saturday, what time will the gates
It's on a Monday. It's actually Monday the 22nd. The gates open at noon, and the show goes until 7 p.m. The actual flying demonstration should be starting around 6. And I say should because that can be weather dependent.
Yeah.
Both for storms, which most people would expect, but also temperature. Sometimes it can quite literally be too hot to fly an air show, depending on the type of aircraft you're using, the airspace you have to play with. Those are all factors that go into consideration when we decide whether we go or not with the actual demonstration.
Okay, so on the 22nd, what kind of planes can we expect to see?
Not your typical airshow planes, which makes us kind of interesting and kind of unique. We have a lot of civilian planes there, privately owned. Some are based right here in Medicine Hat, and some come from elsewhere in southern Alberta. We've had some in the past, all the way from BC, Saskatchewan. Some very unique aircraft, vintage aircraft, one of a kind, some cases a kit-built aircraft where the owner has actually built the aircraft themselves out of a box, quite simply. Plus, we typically have some military presence. It's a bit of a challenge this year. There's a lot going on with the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force, so a lot of the assets are tied up in very major events. Plus, with the world situation, there's a lot of assets that are tied up with actually doing their job. So we do have a request in with the Canadian Forces to send us something, even if it's just for a flyby, but that could be a very last-minute thing. Yeah. Similar to what actually happened last time, we found out on the day we were going to get a fly pass by 2 CF-18 Hornets, which we did, which was very fun and very exciting for us, but we weren't sure about that until the day it happened.
Now, the Medicine Hat Air Show is relatively small compared to some of the larger ones, but it strikes me as it's more intimate.
Very much so. The nice thing about our air show is that the pilots of the aircraft that you see are all there to share their excitement and their passion for aviation. Often we'll get pilots and their aircraft visiting us that have just come off one of those major air shows, and they are having a day off of flying. So they just get to sit and talk to the public and be excited about their airplanes. You get to get up really close to sometimes show planes you don't get to see, because if they're actually flying, they're held behind the fence because they're fully fueled and ready to go. Now you get to go right up to them. Plus, as I said earlier, you have these vintage aircraft, which typically you don't see at all unless you go to these other airports where they're based out of. So now you have an opportunity, similar to when you go to a car show, where people have their older cars all shined up and ready to go. Same thing with airplanes.
So will the spectators have the opportunity to actually fly?
Yes, actually. There are 2 opportunities for flight. One is through Super T Aviation, our local flight school. They are offering scenic rides over the city at, if I remember correctly, $30 a person. Plus Yellow Thunder, which is one of our performers. They're coming with 2 World War II era Harvards. And they're selling rides, either just a scenic ride over the city, an aerobatic ride where you get to get turned on your head a little bit, and also a formation ride where you will fly in close proximity to the other aircraft. All that information can be found on our website, familyfunandflight.com, or on our Facebook page, Medicine Hat Family Fun and Flight.
Now, the Harvards, I believe, were here during the Second World War.
Exactly right. So it's very appropriate for them to be here because, as most people know, and maybe a lot don't, Medicine Hat Airport was originally built as part of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan of World War II to train air crews for Europe. And the Harvard was a very common training aircraft, and there were a number of them based here at the time. So it's very appropriate for us to have Harvards back to Medicine Hat.
Now, with it being an air show at the Medicine Hat Airport, is there going to be access issues for drivers?
Certainly mitigating factors, like we had to put certain measures into place because of our experience in the past. On our best year, we had 10,000 people through the gate. Typically, we see between 4 and 6. So there are a number of measures put in place. Probably the biggest one people will notice is for traffic, there will be no left-hand turn off of Gershaw Drive into the airport. If you're coming to the airport for any reason, either to watch the show or to actually catch a flight or pick someone up or drop someone off, you're best off to take the 120 or South Boundary Road out to the highway and then turn back towards the airport and then make a right-hand turn in. Or if you're coming on Gershaw, at the bottom of the hill by the cemetery at the lights, turn left, go around the south side of the airport and again back onto the highway and then back in that way.
So the airport is actually operating its normally scheduled flights during the family fun
Correct.
flight.
Yes.
Ah.
So what we've done is we actually have an area fenced off, and this is something that we've been working very closely with the airport, who's a terrific partner for us, and Transport Canada, being the regulator of all things aviation, amongst other things, that we have very specific fencing in place. We have people monitoring the access points, and we also have to have some very, very specific rules about entry. Not surprisingly, no smoking or vaping of any kind, because you are on an airport. You're inside the fence, what we call airside of an airport. We do not allow any pets whatsoever. Service dogs are permitted so long as they actually have Alberta or equivalent identification for that animal.
Okay.
And even if you are coming with your service dog, just know, and also if you're coming with anybody really, that there's very little grass. We do have some canopy set up, but it is a very hot environment. It's a lot of pavement, so be prepared to maintain yourself hydrated, have your sunscreen on. We do have first aid on site, of course, and we do have a number of food vendors that offer, beverages and cold drinks and things like that for sale. But do be prepared for a hot day. Right now, the forecast is sunny and 30 for the day.
So in an airport, that's going to be pretty hot around the tarmac for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. If you've ever gone to Stampede and noticed how hot it is on the Midway, for example, and all that pavement, similar experience.
What's the admission to the show?
Absolutely free, which is really unique for us. Most other air shows you go to have a gate fee, and appropriately so, because they do have to pay the bills. We are entirely volunteer run, and we rely on gate donations and sponsorship to function. So we do have a donation bucket at the gate.
Right.
We do certainly appreciate any donations that people are able to give. But the nice thing is also that when you come to the show, especially if you're coming with small children, for example, if after 20 minutes or a half hour they're done, you can just go and not feel like you haven't gotten full value out of it.
Right. So I'm sure this is a massive logistical enterprise, but I'm curious, what does the Airboss do?
The Airboss, that's my title. It's actually the call sign, if you will, for the aerial demonstration coordinator or the aerial event coordinator. That's the person who's specifically responsible for the flying portion of an air show. Because of the kind of unique nature of a flying demonstration, they want someone on the ground who knows what the performance is supposed to look like and can control and coordinate aircraft entering and exiting the air show box, which is a three-dimensional chunk of airspace that's created, and all the air show has to take place, or all the aerobatics have to take place inside that box. And that's one of the responsibilities of an Airboss to do. But we call the person the Airboss because that's a lot easier to say on the radio than aerial event coordinator.
Without a doubt, that's quite a mouthful on a scratchy radio. Now, you mentioned the airbox.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the issue if Medicine Hat decided to do a much larger air show?
The air box, like I said, is a chunk of airspace, goes from the surface to whatever altitude we need. And right now, it goes to the airport perimeter, right to the fence.
Okay.
And the aircraft we have coming will all be doing their aerobatics inside that space. Larger aircraft, larger formations like CF-18s, the Snowbirds, etc., require a much larger box. And for us to do that, if the box extended out, for example, over Highway 3 and into the light industrial area, there could be nobody inside that during the demonstration, which would mean we'd have to close the highway and evacuate the light industrial area, which certainly is conceivable, but not very likely.
Which is why most air shows take place on weekends.
On weekends, and also well outside of their municipalities. For example, Lethbridge, if people have gone to that, you'll note that airport is a fair bit outside of the city, and it takes place over a large field outside the airport, where it's very easy to contain that airspace. Springbank does it. When Edmonton used to do it, it used to be on a military base, etc. So because of how the city has grown around the airport, this is about as big as we could get unless we wanted to get really big.
But I have the impression that most people are quite happy with a smaller, more intimate air show than a huge $50 to get in. You have to spend.
It is an opportunity to take part in an aviation event like an air show without the big expense, as you say. Abbotsford, for example, BC has a wonderful air show, but it's a 3-day event, and it's big. This one you get to get up to the planes because we're primarily static display, which means aircraft parked on the ground. It doesn't cost anything. So you can come out at any time, come in, see it, and then leave. And then come back again later if you want. Let's say you want to come at like noon or at 1 just after the gates open, check it out, and then come back at 6, which is when we're expecting the aerial demonstration to start. It doesn't cost you any extra.
Okay. I notice on your poster and your website, you refer to a gentleman by the name of David Rosdeba.
Yes.
Who is David?
Dave, along with Kevin Green, were the original creators of Family Fun and Flight. Oh. Dave was a vice principal at Eagle Butte School, and his connection to aviation was that his father, Ed, was actually one of the first pilots of the Canadian Air Force's Golden Hawks, which was the aerial demonstration team that predated the Snowbirds. They flew a very distinctive bright gold CF-86 Canadair Sabre. And in 2009, when we first started, there was a Sabre that had been restored and painted in the Golden Hawks colors, and it was doing a cross-Canada tour. And David and Kevin managed to arrange a stop on the tour of that aircraft. And so it landed here, people got to see it got to fly around a bit, and that was the impetus for the start of Family Fun and Flight. We haven't run every year, of course, because we tend to piggyback on behind larger air shows, but we have been offering Family Fun and Flight since 2009. When Dave passed away a few years ago, sadly, we very quickly decided to name the air show in his honor, and that's why it is now the Dave Rosdeba Memorial Air Show. His name is also attached to the Eagle Butte High School's Aviation Academy. That's also part of his legacy. And his daughter, Caitlin, who is a pilot, is now a teacher at the Dave Rosdeba Aviation Academy. So it's a really nice full circle thing. And it speaks to the amount of excitement and passion that everyone involved with the show has, not only just because we're interested and excited about aviation, but also to honor Dave's memory.
Okay, so Monday, July the 22nd.
Yes. From
noon until 7 p.m.
That's correct.
Free admission.
Free parking.
And free parking.
And actually, I will point out as well, when you do come onto the airport, if you're going to the terminal, we will have people right at the entrance. Let them know you're going to the terminal, whether you're picking someone up or meeting a flight. They'll let you through into the terminal and you can park normally. If you're going to the air show, they'll direct you to where the free parking is. Naturally, we will allow accessible drop-off if necessary right at the front gate, but otherwise everyone will have to park in the designated parking areas, and we have marshalers in place for that.
Well, congratulations on 15 years
Thank
of
you.
an air show. I'm looking forward to it.
Look forward
the
to seeing you
weather's
there.
certainly going to be on your side.
We've only had to scrub an air show early once due to an approaching storm. We do have, procedures in place if we have to, but fingers crossed that.
So is there anything else you would like to add?
Just if anyone's interested in more information, we have our website, familyfunandflight.com, Facebook, Medicine Hat, Family Fun and Flight, and we would absolutely love to see everybody out there. It's going to be another great show.
Thank you for coming in, Marco.
Thank you again.
Thank you for watching Community Conversations.